Joining me today to continue the conversation which we started in last week's episode on philanthropy is Aurelia Kassatly, a senior manager of private clients at the Charities Foundation. Welcome, Aurelia.
Hi, Remi. Thank you for having me.
Right. So, Aurelia, I wanted to say that I gather that CAF has been having non-stop conversations with people willing to assist in these COVID times.
Yes, you're right. It's been very busy for us, and we've had a lot of clients really just very keen to get money out to charities and people in need. And in fact, if you compare the volume of this year's donations with last year's donations in March, they're up by over 200%, which is phenomenal.
That's absolutely amazing. But the first things first, what is CAF and what does it do?
That's a very good question, because we mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So we help corporates and individuals with their philanthropy and providing them with a streamlined and easy way to give to charities all over the world. We support the development of civil society in the UK and worldwide. We have global offices. We do a lot of policy and advocacy work in the UK around a favourable environment for the charitable sector to operate in. We do social investment, and we also have a bank. And as you mentioned, I'm in the private client team, so that means I work with high net worth individuals who use CAF to manage all or perhaps part of their charitable giving in the UK.
But I take it that CAF is not just for high net worth individuals and anybody can donate through CAF.
Absolutely. We have thousands, over 10,000, I think, what we call CAF account holders. So that's a CAF account which people like you and me, not high net worth individuals, can donate to every month or whenever convenient and make donations out to charity. And it's a convenient way to kind of collect all of your charitable money together and manage it in sort of one central way. And we also do a lot of payroll giving for companies. So that's Give As You Earn schemes and that kind of thing on behalf of employees for sort of big companies, big and small companies all around the UK as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a really sensible way to manage your giving. Now, moving on to the Sunday Times Rich List. I know CAF is a sponsor of that, and this year's list has just recently come out, and they have a section on philanthropy. Any insights you can share on that?
Yes, absolutely. This year's list was a very interesting one for a number of reasons. So, as you say, there's the Rich List, and then alongside that, the Sunday Times published the Giving List, which ranks the top philanthropists in the UK according to what percentage of their wealth they give away or have given away. And this year, the list was really interesting for a number of reasons. One, because there was a lot of response from the general public in terms of why the Sunday Times was even deciding to do a list like this at this time when there's so much strife and anguish and growing levels of poverty. And indeed, in compiling the list itself, at the beginning of the process, when the journalists were doing research and collecting the net worth and assessing that of various people on the list, to the end of it, when it was finally released, there were changes simply in a matter of weeks because of the value of people's assets fluctuating wildly. So that was sort of a very interesting and unusual thing for them to contend with. And then on top of that, it highlighted the scrutiny and the increased attention that's being paid to high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals, particularly now as everyone really wants to understand how these individuals are going to help this crisis. What charities have they supported? How much money are they giving? How does this stack up against how much they're worth? And how are they running their businesses in this time? Are they furloughing a lot of staff? Are they taking bonus cuts themselves? And so I think it will be very interesting to see next year how that attention has changed or not, and how people on that list have responded to the crisis, if at all.
And how generally are you finding that donors and philanthropists are responding to the COVID crisis?
So in a lot of the conversations that we've been having with our clients, and I think I can really only speak to that, we've noticed that there's an increased desire perhaps to be more strategic and long-term and considered in their giving, because they understand that the needs, particularly now, is enormous, and all sorts of groups of people who maybe wouldn't have been affected by this kind of thing in the past really are now increasingly in need. And so they're very keen to understand where their money can make the most difference, if there are elements about their giving behavior that they should change. And I think that this presents us with a really good opportunity as well, because, and indeed CAF will be doing some research on this, but it is possible that some of the sort of typical behaviors and perceptions of philanthropists and indeed grant-making organizations, perceptions around having low overhead costs, for example, or not funding unrestricted, not giving unrestricted grants, making sure that funding is very prescriptive and for specific programs. That kind of behavior, it does hinder charities potentially from investing in themselves, investing in the digital technologies that they need, developing contingency plans if something goes wrong, and really having sort of a runway of available unrestricted funds to pay people and to manage in times like this. And I think there's an increasing connection between how people are funding organizations and then what those organizations are able to do. And so that is a really interesting and very positive development that I welcome, and something that we're focusing on a lot at CAF as well.
Oh, that's really good. And what do you see the future holds for the sector?
I think it's still very much an unknown, but I do think that there's a lot of potential for the reasons that I just mentioned. And I think it's really about thinking, how can charities themselves be better structured and be better resourced for the future? How can they work with their donors better so that they get the type of funding that they need? And indeed, how can the other side of that, so donors and grant-making organizations themselves, how can they make sure that they're funding charities in the way that best sets them up for success? And I think that's a very exciting time to be part of, because although it's also an awful period where many, many charities may close and the sector has been very badly hit, it also presents us with the opportunity to reset and to do things potentially a little differently and better in the future.
Thank you. And just as a final word, what would you like to leave us with?
I suppose just to say that despite obviously the gloom and doom and the turmoil that we're all experiencing right now, I am also quite optimistic, simply because it presents us with the opportunity to do something different. And I think that it's an important lesson to all of us who work in philanthropy to really strive to do better for the organizations and for the people that we are trying to help.